Hey everybody, just to let you know, I finished the investigation of the issue of the debate about the so-called problem of house division, dealing with whole sign places and equal cusps. And this means that there will be no more videos on that topic, so this tier is at its end. So why this video? Well, this leaves room to start another tier in my Patreon, but the question is on what topic will I do it? Should I do it? So I've made a poll for you. So there are so many fascinating topics left to investigate. So the question is, what would you like me to engage with first, next? So what piques your interest most? So I will be presenting to you the possibilities, seven possibilities of topics that I can address and would like to address and make videos of for your study. So yeah, let me show you what the topics are that you can choose from, and please let me know, please do let me know which one would be your first choice, and if you would like to let me know if you would be interested in becoming a patron when this topic that you preferred is chosen. So without further ado, let's have a look, but first I want to make sort of an announcement. This is it. I have started a new, well, I'm actually continuing my projects under a new name, Vestigium Hermetis. I will explain what this means, but the principle has always been and still is dedicated to the investigation of the concepts and the principles that Robert Schmidt and his wife Ellen Black discovered, that they unveiled and introduced into the Western tradition of astrology, which is based on the earliest Greek Hellenistic sources. So the reason is that Robert Schmidt left us such a vast and rich corpus of material after his death in 2018, and his wife also just as important in all that research, and she passed away this year as well. So you could say that Project Hindsight is sort of orphaned. I'm not sure what will happen with Project Hindsight, if new projects will be going on, etc. So, but I'm not sure. So, but the material that they both produced is so crucial in the re-evaluation of our astrological practice that it deserves ongoing attention and efforts to apply it in reading charts. And this is what I will continue to investigate, as I've done in many of my videos, in my webinars and other presentations. So in my mind, Schmidt's greatest achievement perhaps is that he was truly able to put the rhyme and reason of the how and why of astrology back on its foundational pedestal, to make it attractive for all people studying it and making it more easy to study it. Now, the word easy is a bit difficult because it's pretty heavy material at times, but again, that's his legacy. That is his major opus, and I want to honor that. I want to honor that legacy with my ongoing projects, and I gave that project now a new title called Vestigium Hermetis, which simply means the footprint of Hermes. And everybody knows that Robert Schmidt, in the last period of his life, was pretty sure that he had discovered the person who was the real Hermes Trismegistus, and he thought that it was Eudoxus of Cnidos. Now, this was, of course, heavily contested, but apart from that, it's my project, Vestigium Hermetis, is meant to honor Schmidt for his reopening the practical hermetics in a very unique way, because astrology is, of course, well, to me, that is a Platonic hermetic practice of spirit, soul, and body, and that is what he really gave a new footing to that, let's say, because then the astrology is very much in line with what can be read in the Corpus Hermeticum. So that's really unique, and I truly think that that is his major achievement, and I hope he would agree with that. So Vestigium Hermetis is dedicated to the further investigation of Schmidt's material in practical astrology. So that's the project that I'm now engaging with, and let me show you which topics that are possible for you to choose from, or indicate which one you would have me treat of primarily in the next tier. What would be your choice of these 7 topics? Let's have a look at them. So the first one I called Perfections 2.0, the next level, so to speak. The often unexplored investigations of this method by Vetters Valens. Vetters Valens in his anthology left us much interesting material, like for instance zodiacal releasing, and this time lord method, which I introducing here, perfections, which is a relatively simple method, that is, at first glance. I first learned this method from Robert Zoller, who did extraordinary things with it, and I was really in awe of its ease of use and its effectiveness, especially as demonstrated by Robert Zoller. It was such an easy way to really make very extraordinary predictions about what would be the issues of the coming year. So that was very interesting. But when you study Valens' use of it, it turns out that it goes way deeper than the way everybody learns it nowadays. Well, that's my take on it. We all learn perfection simply by the most simple method, by you know what age the person is, when his birthday is, and then you seek out which image is the perfected ascendant for this coming year. And then you start delineating everything from that image, the place it is, and of course the Lord of the Year, which is the planet, the domicile master of the perfected ascendant. I think that in most cases that's where the investigation of this method ends. But of course, the question which planet is the ruler of the year with the perfected ascendant is a bit more subtle and complicated when you read what Vetters Valens has to say about that. So, as I said, most students learn the method that I call Perfections 101, but in this tier we learn everything about Perfections 2.0, because in this tier you hone your skill in the judgment of yearly perfections as a standalone method. So it's not combined yet, you can use it really all on its own. It's a standalone method, but when you learn these new principles that Valens introduced, and you can get better results with these methods. So if you'd like this one to be the one that I will be addressing in my next tier, please let me know. I will at the end of this video I will show you an email address where you can contact me and let me know which one you would like to hear about much more. So okay, on to the next one. The next one that I would like to put on offer is this one. It's about general significators. So this is 2 life experiences, moving and being moved, divided into 4 groups, which I will talk about a little, and seen from 3 perspectives. Now, in Schmidt's efforts to translate Greek Hellenistic principles to a modern idiom, he introduced this fascinating study. Just to whet your appetite, the 4 groups shown here are divided into 2 principal experience that we have with or in our life, and that is an active and a passive mode, and that's what I've been calling moving and being moved. Moving being the active part and being moved being sort of the passive part. And these 2 principles can be attributed to the sun as the principle of movement and to the moon as a principle of being moved, so active and passive. Now, the pairs mentioned here, the ascendant and the MC, the lot of fortune and the lot of spirit, and the prenatal new moon and the prenatal full moon together represent one principle. So the ascendant and the MC together is one principle, as are the rest. But each principle is separated into these 2 modes, an active one and a more passive one. So let me give an example. So for instance, the ascendant and the MC in your life, is your life conceptualized as a journey, and that requires a vehicle, so that which is traveling, which is the ascendant, and the road or a path that is traveled on, which is represented by the MC. So that's a very interesting and a very acute way to separate these 2 principles, and it really makes available a lot of things to say about a natal chart and about somebody's life. So Schmidt evaluates these 2 principles by means of their configurations with them, of the other planets, the disposition, what we now call dignities, and possible aversions to them. So yeah, that's a very fascinating study, and you can join me in studying it. So on to the next one. Another very interesting study is the one called the legal paradigm. So Schmidt discovered and revealed many paradigms in the Greek Hellenistic material, for instance the grammatical paradigm, so the grammatical principles, for instance, helping to understand the delineations formulated for planets in images and planets in places. And it's quite convincing as a background of the how and why of the astrological principles. Unfortunately, I'm not that good in grammar, so let alone grammar of the ancient Greek, so that will have to wait until I can get my brain wrapped around that. But it's very interesting, and the way Schmidt talks about that is so illuminating. But okay. Another of the paradigms, metaphors that he discovered was the nautical paradigm. So this envisions life as being on a boat, on a journey, seafaring, trying to establish the role of each planet that it has in navigating your life. So that's about navigating by your stars, so to speak. And again, a very interesting metaphor that can really help to try to understand the overall view of the life of the native. Now, and another very prominent one is the legal paradigm, which I will be treating in this tier when it's chosen. This envisions chart delineations as if it was a court case, where specific rules ought to be followed so the judge could come to a fair ruling of whether or not a request will be granted or not. So planets in the 12 topical places can be conceptualized as making a request and hoping that that request will be granted by the court. Of course, the judge is the cosmic soul. So, for instance, there are planets in the 5th place. That's the one petitioning for quote, I would like to have children, preferably healthy and strong ones, if it please the court, end quote. So the question then is, will this request be granted? Does it have merit? Which testimony is pro and con this plea, this request? So this is a fascinating study which can really help to get a clearer perspective on things to take into account when you're judging planets in places. So it's a very interesting and a very practical model to try to get to grips with what we can evaluate in a natal chart to see whether or not the principles, the requests made by planets in certain places will be granted or not, and under what conditions and circumstances that is. So if you'd like that one, please let me know. The 4th topic that is on offer when you choose it is the investigation of personality. That is probably the topic of prime interest to modern clients and modern astrologers dealing with clients seeking astrological consultations since the advent of psychological astrology. The most important question often is, who am I? And why am I here and what I'm doing here? Well, the usual principles helping the astrologers to make statements about these issues are primarily the ascendant, the sun, and the moon. And these were investigated by Schmidt, and many things attributed to these three as to personality are not so much questioned or debated by him, but rather investigated further, as their connection with personality and the native psyche often is not that obvious. So in this tier we will investigate the doctrine of personality as seen from the Greek Hellenistic perspective, which can be a very interesting topic if you're deep into modern astrology, of course, but even the traditional astrologers, of course, are also very interested in the makeup of the native, what's your psyche, what is your personality, according to these ancient methods. So that's the other tier that's on offer. Another hotly debated topic is the question about when is a planet afflicted and how is it afflicted. And this is treated in the idea of maltreatment and bonifications, which was found in Schmidt's major opus, his book Definitions and Foundations, gave a very detailed definition for what we now normally call an affliction of a planet. But it turns out that the modern idea of affliction is way too general. It's a bit vague because there are no less than 8 specific conditions mentioned that maltreat planets. So you cannot conclude that when a planet has 2 or 3 of these maltreatment conditions, that it is really badly afflicted without specifying what exactly the problem is. The interesting thing is that each of these maltreatment conditions constitute a very specific problem for that planet, and also that a planet can have more of them. It can have 2 or 3 conditions of maltreatment. So you can specify this when you learn these specific maltreatment conditions, as each of them has its own character. So what is the problem, or what are the problems this or that planet is facing when it is maltreated, and we can readily define that. So and there's also a reverse idea of the maltreatment conditions that are not stated, but they can be concluded by means of the same definitions that are maltreated. When you change them into benefic principles, then you're talking about bonification conditions. So you can learn all about this fascinating study in this tier. So let me know if you'd like this one on your wish list. In this tier, called Life's Initiations and Trials by Fire, I will investigate the 7 hermetic lots and their more deeper issues. And the study of these hermetic lots is, of course, always fascinating because they bring to life such an important questions to be raised about the life of the native in general. And in Schmidt's efforts to translate Greek Hellenistic principles to a modern idiom, he introduced another fascinating study to satisfy the curiosity of our more modern clients, perhaps. So the question is that you can ask, where in your life have you experienced what can be called initiations? And the other question is, where in your life have you experienced what can be called trials by fire, the trials and tribulations that we can conclude as being trials by fire? So in this tier we investigate these 2 major issues in the chart, and they are, again, as always, quite fascinating and really new. No, as far as I know, no other principle was introduced to be able to study these principles, save all sorts of transits and whatnot. But this is more the principle, how it's ingrained in your personal life and how it's ingrained in your natal chart, and how we can study that. So let me know if you'd like this one. This is one of my, I'm not quite sure if I can call it my favorite topic, but it's one that I'm really interested in investigating, because people familiar with my work know that I have presented this concept as shown in this image many times. It helps me understand the fascinating concept of fate, and with it, it's quite easy to understand the subtleties of all the different principles often mentioned and encountered in studying ancient texts. I mean the significations of planets, places and images, of course. And I think this model offers a very satisfying manner to differentiate between the different ways the astrologicals are often addressed and described in the text, and what we can do with them, so how we can perceive them, right? Now, one of my struggles with this is to try to understand the difference between the natal chart and what's possibly signified by this 3rd step, which we as natives sort of arrive in the world at large, or rather we are thrown into it when we are born. So where is this world? What does it represent, and how is it represented in this astrology? So the place of coming to be and passing away, as it was stated in the philosophical text, is represented in Greek Hellenistic astrology by, for instance, the fortune places, or at least it seems to be conceptualized in them. In this tier, I want to investigate the difference between the natal chart and this other level even further, this other level, if we can call it that, and how we can use this fascinating concept in this magnificent idea of the ancient astrologers, philosophers. So where is the actual world in Greek Hellenistic astrology, and where can we find it? And that is the main goal of the investigation of this 7th tier. Again, if you'd like me to address this, and if you'd like to become a patron, please let me know, and I will get on with this one. Okay. Now, as I've said in the beginning, Schmidt discovered and uncovered perhaps many concepts having to do with astrology and the practical use of it and the system behind it. So, is there anything else that you would like to investigate, which is high on your wish list and which I haven't addressed here? So please let me know so I can try to work that either in or try to develop a tier on that issue. So yeah, please let me know if there is anything that you would like very much to address. Please let me know so I can see whether or not I can make a tier out of it. So okay, thank you. So this is my presentation and the poll that I have put in this video. As always, in any tier that will be chosen by you and which I will start introducing and will start up, it's always about monthly uploaded videos. People knowing my work will know that I always do step-by-step argumentation and try to show how we can use all this material in natal charts. There will be example charts, many of them of course, and that's always possible to have a question and answer exchange between us. So yeah, this is it. So again, this middle tier will be not deleted, it will remain on my Patreon, simply because other people might be later interested in it, and then you can choose to become a patron for that tier, and then you can watch all the videos and study the material. So yeah, so please mail your preferred topic, even if you don't want to become a patron, to this email address. Thank you very much, because it's always helpful to know what people are interested in and try to address the material that people want to study. So again, thanks for listening. I hope you will do me the honor of mentioning which ones you would like to see treated by me, and perhaps even if you would like to become a patron. So thank you again, and I hope to see you on another video. Thank you. Bye.